So I finally bit the bullet and bought myself a brand new Veritas router plane. So I thought I'd do a review of the router plane and also compare it to old vintage router planes that you can get for much less money. Let's see how they match up. So I'm outside again today because it's a nice day and the dresser is still on my workbench, but the trains are going by, so it might be a little noisy, just to warn you in advance. So the router, Veritas router, I went ahead and I bought the entire set that includes all of the irons as well as the plane and the auxiliary fence here, which we will get to that later. So let's take a look at the plane. Now, first impressions are it's a little bit smaller than the old vintage planes that I have. And just to show you what I have here, I have a Miller's Falls router plane, and I also have a Stanley number 71. Now let's take a look measurement-wise. The base of the Veritas is about 14 centimeters long. The base of the Stanley is about 19, and the base of the Miller's Falls is about 21. So, pretty big difference if you look at all three in comparison. So we have the Veritas, the Stanley, and the Miller's Falls. Pretty big size comparison. Now, does that matter? Well, I guess it depends what you're doing with it. These two have fences that you can attach to the bottom like this, and the new Veritas, the fence attaches to the side, I believe. I haven't put it on yet, but let's do that and see how it looks. Then we can compare usage. So right off the bat, one thing that I do like about the Veritas fence is the attachment has a place in the back here for the screw that you use to attach it to the plane. So you're never going to lose that, which is pretty cool actually. This flat attaches to the side of the plane, and then the screw we just took out is used to secure it to the body. The flat part that attaches to the body doesn't quite line up with the body. There's a little bit, if I loosen the screw, you'll see that there's a little bit of play. So I'm not really sure if I like that. If you hold it up against the back, if you hold it up against the bottom and attach it, it's not bad, but as you can see, there's still a good bit of clearance in between there. And then the fence will slide on like that, and you adjust it with that turn screw there. So that looks pretty nice. This fence, there's a curved part and a flat part. All you have to do is unscrew it from the rod here and flip it around, and you can use the curved part of the fence. But that's pretty much comparable to the old router planes. Again, you have a flat part and you flip it over and you have a curved part. Now, that curve radius on the Stanley is pretty tight. So I don't know what you'd be doing with a curve that tight with the router plane. This one, the Miller's Falls, is not that bad. But the Veritas is definitely a little larger. So let's talk about adjustment. With the Stanley and the Miller's Falls, they both work the same way. You have this locking collar, and then you adjust the height with that, and then you screw it back up. Now the problem with these old router planes has always been finite adjustments, because this screw mechanism and the way that the iron is attached to it and the way that you have to loosen this collar and tighten it again prohibits you from making really minute adjustments with this. And that's one of the things that the Veritas company has improved upon with their router, because what they did was they added a spring-loaded collar So even though I loosen this turn screw, there's a spring that you have to push in to be able to move the iron. See if we can get that to work here. So sorry about that. You could probably tell by the look on my face and the way that I stopped talking that I had some problems with my router plane. In German we would say, wir hatten technische Schwierigkeiten. We had some technical difficulties. So what I was about to explain is that the Veritas plane on the locking knob, it has a spring inside. It's spring-loaded, so that when you undo the locking knob to adjust the height or the depth of the iron, the spring keeps the iron against the post that it's attached to. So there's no play, which is much different from the older planes. And actually one of the drawbacks is as soon as you loosen the locking knob, this part, the iron, becomes very loose, which makes it very difficult to make fine adjustments. On mine, like an idiot, the day after I bought this, I accidentally knocked it off my bench. It got caught on my coat, and it bent the locking knob, which prevented the spring-loaded mechanism from working. And that's what I had just discovered yesterday when I was about to explain. So anyway, I fixed that, so now it's working perfectly. And like I said earlier, if you undo the locking knob, you can see a little bit, if I press it in, you can see how the spring action keeps this part against the, or rather keeps the iron against this part so that you can make fine adjustments. So that's one thing on the Veritas that I love. And also the Veritas has a depth stop that you can adjust this way to set exactly the depth that you need, which makes it perfect for adjusting tenons, because sometimes you have to take off a lot of material and sometimes you have to take off only a little bit. And if you're doing a lot of tenons, it's great to be able to set this depth so that all the tenons will ultimately be the same thickness, but then be able to adjust the iron so that you can take off more wood or little if you need to. What I've done in the past is I've used two router planes, which is why I have the Miller's Falls and also the Stanley, so that I can set one at one depth, a final depth, and then use the other to hog off material. So the Veritas definitely does away with the necessity for having multiple router planes. Now, since I already have the fences attached, let's take a look at how the fences work on both of the planes. So I've put the 1mm blade in the Veritas and I have the fence set up, and what I did for a test is, without making any marking lines or using a marking knife or anything, I just decided to see if I can make a groove using this iron. And as you can see, it cuts very well. Well, it's very sharp, and I've been able to make a very nice groove that is nice and parallel with the edge of the board using this. Now that is due, in fact, because of this large fence. This is very long and it is very stable. You don't get a lot of movement side to side, so it makes it very easy. Now, the older router planes, like the Miller's Falls, have fences that look like this, and compared to the Veritas, you can see the difference in the lengths of the fences. And this has turned out to make a huge difference if you're trying to do the same thing with, for example, the Miller's Falls router plane. Now, I don't have any 1mm blaze for this router plane, but I've chosen a 1/4 inch, about a 6mm wide, and I tried to do the exact same thing with the fence. Basically just trying to cut a groove without any other lines or anything. And it is possible. The groove is a little shaky. Shaky meaning it's not quite, let's see, around this part. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but it's not quite straight with the side of the board. And that's because of the instability of the plane in general, because this fence is so short. So, and also there's no place to attach, there's no way, excuse me, to attach a larger fence to this. There's no holes in the fence that you might find with other planes, like, for example, the Veritas has holes in the fence. You can see that, which will allow you to attach a larger piece of wood if you need a longer fence. So that's a definite improvement with the Veritas. Now, using the planes to adjust tenons is not that different. Both of the planes do their jobs, and it's very easy to adjust a tenon. However, like I said earlier, because of the fine adjustment knob on the Veritas, or rather the ability to make fine adjustments because of the spring-loaded locking knob, it does tend to be a little easier to do all your tenon adjustment with just one plane as opposed to using two. Now, one thing to consider if you're thinking about purchasing a vintage router plane as opposed to a new router plane is the availability of irons. Now, when I bought the Miller's Falls, this guy over here, I got one and then three irons that came with it. These guys. And if you look, the heads are shaped such that they can only be used one way, either forward or backwards. What I mean is, the Stanley irons, I believe these are the Stanley. I don't think they're the Miller's Falls. I don't know. I might have it backwards. In any case, these irons, if you look, they are shaped like the new Veritas irons. And the way that the heads are shaped, can't get this into focus here, like this, means that you're able to put the iron in the router plane at any angle. For example, I can put it sideways if I want because of the shape of the top of the head, which these guys does not allow. So that's one thing to consider. Also, just the availability of sizes. Now, like I said earlier, I got 3 planes with my Miller's Falls, and basically it's a 1/4 inch, and I think this is 1/2 inch or so. And I also have a 1/2 inch straight blade, which is already in the plane. Here, let me show you that like that. So just 3 basically, and only 2 different sizes. Now the Stanley, there was a little more variation, but not much. And definitely did not have any small irons like you see with the Veritas, really thin. Like this is 3 millimeters, and the one in the plane is 2, if I remember correctly. I can't see the number. Where's the number? Yeah. So that's 2 millimeters thick, wide. So that gives you a lot of variety. Also, the Veritas comes with your pointy blade, and also a flat, like you saw, to adjust tenons, and also an extra wide, which is really nice. Plus, they all have heads that can come off, or at least the wide ones. Sorry, the 3 I just showed you do. The thinner irons do not. Those do not come off, so you have to sharpen those the traditional way. But the Veritas also comes with a nifty sharpening tool so that you can take off the head of, for example, this iron, and then attach it to the end of that and use this to hold onto as you sharpen the blade, which is great. Now, the only other remarkable difference to mention is the shape, or rather the body of the planes themselves. If you look at the Veritas, it has a closed throat, a closed neck here, as opposed to the older planes, which have these open necks. And it has a support rod that you can take in or out if you need it. I have never needed this, but there's obviously a reason why they designed the planes this way, and it's probably such that you can get into an opening if there's some sort of piece of wood that's higher than the surrounding. Maybe you can use this to come in. I'm not really sure what the application is or why they have these open throats. Maybe someone who is more familiar with hand tools could write in the comments section and tell me what they were originally designed for. But anyway, apparently the Veritas company has decided that that application is no longer needed, so they have created this closed throat body. So that, in my opinion, kind of limits the uses of this plane, but you know, it's a very small shortcoming. So what's the verdict? Which is better, the vintage router planes or the new Veritas router plane? Well, I tell you, honestly, I have used this for years without issue. I've gotten used to the quirks in how to adjust the irons, etc. And since I have two, I've been able to use both at the same time, adjusting one to the final depth of whatever I'm trying to adjust, and then using the other to hog out more material. So if you have the money and the resources to buy two of the older ones, I think you can get away with it. I have yet to have a need also for really thin irons. I tend to use the other planes, like a Stanley 50 or 55. Or a 45 if I need to do grooves, stuff like that. So I haven't had the need for it. However, that being said, the ability to make fine adjustments with this plane makes it really easy to use. And it's very smooth. The irons come razor sharp, and there's also a lot of assortment of irons that it comes with. I also like the fence on this a lot better than the older router planes. So now, I think I would go with this. If you don't have a router plane yet and you're only going to buy one, then I would recommend shelling out the money to buy a new one. Also, in terms of customer service, if there's something that goes wrong, like if you're a dumbass like me and you knock it off the bench and you need a new locking knob, even though I was able to fix mine on my own, you do have a company that you can call that still manufactures these, and you can get a replacement. So that's a big benefit to buying a new router plane. So that's my take on it. Hopefully this helps someone who's looking into buying these router planes, and I'll see you in the next one.